This is a Gear Network production.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's your boy, Mr. Perez, and you're listening to the Better Live Than Dead podcast, brought to you exclusively on Gear Network. Listen in.
Hey everybody, how's it going? It's Ryan Wolf, the host of the Better Live Than Dead podcast. Right now you are listening to our 6th episode on the Gear Radio Network, and let me tell you what, we've got a great show lined up for you this afternoon. First of all, going to talk some football. The second week of the NFL season is in the books, and there's already some crazy stuff that's happened. We're going to talk about that, and then for the first time in Better Live Than Dead history, we're going to talk some Major League Baseball, so stick around for that. Also, coming up just after these short commercial breaks, Mr. Perez makes his triumphant return to the Better Live Than Dead podcast. Stay tuned. You're not going to want to miss that one. While you're listening to this podcast, make sure you follow us on social media. You can follow me at WolfSHC on Twitter. You can also follow Mr. Perez at MRLGPerez. Make sure to like the podcast on Facebook. That's facebook.com/BLTD Podcast. And make sure to follow Gear Network on Twitter at GERE Network.
Wrestling fans, this is JC Money here, and I want to talk wrestling with you. That's right, I want to talk WWE with you, I want to talk indies with you, I want to talk WWE 2K video games, I want to talk anything wrestling with you, because we are talking wrestling with JC Money, Thursdays on the Gear Radio Network.
Welcome back to the Better Live Than Dead podcast, and as I mentioned before the commercial break, the triumphant return of Mr. Perez.
Hello, peoples. How are you doing out there?
It's the Radio Land people. They are excited for your return. It was weird not having a podcast with you last week. I know we had extenuating circumstances with the Buffalo Bills being sold, and I just wanted to get the podcast hammered out, as I mentioned, but it was really weird not having you on the podcast.
Yeah, man, it was weird not being on the podcast. You're going to hear some weird noises in a second on my line. I'm sorry, I'm currently going through a car wash.
You are. If nothing else, you are terrible with timing. That's for sure.
That's a true story. But yeah, it happened. I'm almost through it.
I want to start today. I don't know why I said because I've got a book in front of me telling me exactly what I want to talk about.
Okay.
Today, let's start with the NFL. Now, mind you, let me just mention before I start, all these stats I'm about to throw at you are before last night's absolute embarrassment of a football game. So,
the Atlanta Hawks destroyed the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, the Falcons were supposed to have a good game. I was not expecting it to be that good of a game. Yes, you did.
Did I say the Hawks?
You did say the Hawks.
We're not talking NBA right now.
I let it slide, though. I'm not going to make fun of you. I'll let it slide.
That's my bad. The Falcons.
We've got a couple, or I'll say 3 winless teams that currently stick out. Now, mind you, before we get into the teams, NFL teams that go 2-0, which all 3 teams that I'm about to mention are, only 12% of the teams have made it to the playoffs since 1990. So, if these 3 teams want to make the playoffs, they're going to have to defy some sort of standing record, if you will.
Okay.
First team, Indianapolis Colts. They were expected to come in and have a great season, but right now they are 28th in the NFL in defense, allowing 295 passing yards per game. Granted, they've played 2 very good football teams in the Denver Broncos and Philadelphia Eagles, but they should have won the Eagles game. That's for sure. They completely collapsed. It was an embarrassment, and I'm honestly not sure what the Colts have to do to get better, but it almost seems as if they are quite lost on the offensive side of things.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. I think that the Colts are possibly in trouble. I think they're going to put some wins together, but their defense is an absolute travesty.
They've got a lot of guys on the defensive side of the ball that are hurt. They just lost Arthur Jones, good defensive lineman. They lost Robert Mathis. to an Achilles injury. He was suspended for 4 games, I think it was, and was in Atlanta working out and ended up tearing his Achilles. So that's not good. No. On the offensive side of things, they keep trying to give Trent Richardson a chance, but I don't feel as if Trent Richardson is worthy of that shot. It almost seems like you give the ball to Ahmad Bradshaw, and you might see a lot more of that this week.
Yeah, Ahmad Bradshaw's really shown that he still has the power and the legs to get it done, while Trent Richardson has just been, I don't know. He was supposed to be extremely good, and he just hasn't lived up to all the hype he had coming out of college.
There's signs of life, if you will, from Trent Richardson, but the problem is that he's a very, very, very prototypical downhill runner. So he'll run directly into the pile, but if he doesn't find a hole, he's not going for more than 3 or 4 yards.
Right. He doesn't have that nice side to side movement you want. He needs to put that in his repertoire, or he's not going to have a fantastic career.
I mean, if the offensive line was a little better for the Colts, it might be okay, because if you're breaking off 6 or 7 yards at a time, that's fine. But when you're getting 3 yards or less, it's not very good.
All I know is that I have him on my fantasy football team, and I've had to bench him.
That's probably because you make terrible decisions sometimes.
Well, you know what's funny is I also have Adrian Peterson on my fantasy football team.
Well, we can talk about that later if you'd like.
Yes, we will.
All right, going on to the next team, the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, they were short of the Denver Broncos. They were the best team in the AFC last season.
Right.
But this year, they've got multiple defensive starters that are injured, not to mention Jamal Charles has a high ankle sprain. And for those of you who don't know what a high ankle sprain does, it essentially seeps up all your burst and slows you down. So while Jamal Charles is one of the best offensive players in the league, this injury will nag him for a good while, and he won't be the same player. Like last year, for instance, C.J. Spiller had a high ankle sprain, and it made him average, very, very normal of a running back.
Yeah, I agree.
So you look at that, coupled with, like I said, the offense has struggled. The defense, they have guys on there that are, I think at one point in time, I think last week, if I'm not mistaken, it was something like by the end of the game, they had 7 guys out who originally were starting on the defense in preseason by the end of week 2.
Yeah, it's just crazy. I don't know about this rash of injuries that's been going on. And, they're constantly making rule changes to try to keep players from getting injured. But it seems to me that with all these new stupid rule changes they're making, people are getting more injured on a regular basis. So, I don't know. It's weird. They have a great squad, but they really won't do anything until, a lot of their people come back off of injury.
I'm honestly not sure at this point if the Kansas City Chiefs can even turn it around, because you've got, it's only the 3rd week of the season, but if you've got guys, important guys in the defensive side of things that are out for the year or gone for a very long time, it's going to be very hard to turn around. It's going to be very hard to turn it around. Now, the last winless team that's...
we agree.
Hey, mark it down in the history books, ladies and gentlemen, because this doesn't happen very often.
No, it doesn't.
But that's why the podcast is so good, though, if I may say so myself.
I agree.
Looking at the 3rd winless team, 3rd and final one for this segment, the New Orleans Saints, shockingly, are winless after 2 games. Now, I say shockingly because they played the Cleveland Browns last week, and they played the Atlanta Falcons the week before, and they should have won both games. But as I will highlight here in a second, their defense is terrible. They are 30th in the NFL, allowing 446 passing yards per game. Actually, sorry, they allow 446 yards per game, and they are 32nd in pass defense, allowing 323.5 passing yards per game.
Yeah,
that's not good.
Yeah, the Saints are in trouble. I don't think anyone realized during the off season that their defense was as horrid as it actually is. I expect the Saints to do more. And they're kind of in the position that the Dallas Cowboys are in, in order to win, you're going to have shootouts that you're going to have to win. And your defense is going to have to do just enough to make sure that you win the actual shootout. And I don't think the Saints have a defense that can put them over the hump. Although the games were close, if my memory doesn't fail me.
That's correct. That they were winning both games late, and then the defense crumbled. And
Right.
In the Atlanta game, allowed them back in the game and went to overtime and lost. And then in Cleveland, they just played like crap, and then Cleveland stuck around and won with the last-second field goal.
Yeah, you lost to Cleveland. To me, that makes your defense pretty bad.
Well, I mean, it's one of those losses that at this point in the season will either make or break your year, because you'll either say, hey, this isn't us, let's rally around this terrible loss and be better, or you'll just say, whatever, shit happens, and just keep playing crappy. Because the first 2 weeks of the season, Sean Payton, the head coach of the New Orleans Saints, ripping Rob Ryan apart on the sideline. I mean, that's not something you want to see, but that highlights how bad the defense has been this year. Rob Ryan's supposed to be a defensive genius, and his defense couldn't stop a water leak.
Right, that's true, but is that Rob Ryan's fault, or is it the actual players that he has played for fault? You can have the greatest defensive scheme on the planet, but if your players are subpar, it's not going to get it done.
I think that falls still on Rob Ryan, though, because if his job is to find a way to make the players fit in the system to work as good as possible, and if he can't do that, it might not be the best players, but if he can't do that,
but he's not the one that's doing the recruiting. That falls on general management and the head coach. So he's got to work with what he's given.
Well, hey, they just signed in the offseason safety Jarvis Byrd from the Buffalo Bills, and from what I've seen so far, he has not done anything. So that's always positive when you dump a crap load of money into a player and he has not made any sort of impact.
That's a true story. That's because all that money is guaranteed.
Moving on to the other side of things, the undefeated teams. Now, these three teams I'm about to mention are surprising, to be completely honest.
Hold on a second. Did we talked about all the undefeated teams? I mean, undefeated. The ones
I picked the three teams that were the most surprising, because there are a few that are
most surprising.
Yeah, there's a couple teams where you're like, okay, yeah, you're 0-2. That's understandable. But this is, these three teams were playoff teams, and now they can't win a game. And the same goes with the undefeated teams. It's three teams that you looked at yourself and you go, really? I did not think they'd be 2-0 at this point. We've got the Arizona Cardinals, who are 17th in pass yards per game, 18th in rushing yards per game. So that seems more like they've just gotten lucky, because they don't have any statistical reason to be this good, but they are. I mean, last week they had Drew Stanton starting at quarterback, and they still won.
Right.
So
a lot of people were like, "Who's that?"
Exactly. To me, that seems like they've just gotten lucky, the luck of the draw. Sometimes the ball just rolls your way. But then I looked at their schedule. And in the next couple weeks, the next 3 weeks, because they've got a game, then a bye week, then a game, we're going to find out what the Arizona Cardinals are made of, because they play the San Francisco 49ers and then have a week off, and then they play the Denver Broncos. So
they're going to lose this week.
Yeah, in 3 weeks, we'll know what the Cardinals are made of. Probably not much, just a fluke, but
I'm calling it right now. In 3 weeks, they're going to be 2-2.
Crazier things have happened, my friend. The next team, the Houston Texans, surprisingly, the worst team in football last year, is 2-0 now. One reason
I don't feel they should have been the worst team in football last year.
They have a lot of talent, but they fell apart.
Oh, they were complete underachievers.
Because
I'm not surprised they're 2-0. I think they finally got their act together. They've been making big plays. So I'm not surprised that this year they're 2-0.
The one thing I want to point out is they're 8th in the NFL with 151.5 rushing yards per game. So that has certainly helped them. And Ryan Fitzpatrick has been a game manager, which is what he needs to be. I mean, if he's got wide receivers there, he's got running backs there. The defense is great. Don't get me wrong. There, anytime you've got J.J. Watt coming off the edge, I mean,
yes.
and not to mention last week we saw them throw a little wrinkle in things with J.J. Watt catching his first career NFL pass and touchdown,
right,
where he was left
I think
wide
he'd be
open.
a good tight end. If you put J.J. Watt in as a tight end, I think that would work. I think that would work out.
Keep an eye out because Bill O'Brien, the head coach of the Houston Texans, did say that it's going to keep happening. So even if it doesn't happen, they're going to start game planning for it. So even if they say, well, hey, J.J. Watt's going to be catching touchdown passes, it may just be just talk. But then again, J.J. Watt.
The defense to look something, that throws another wrinkle in the defensive game plan.
Well, because when you saw how open Watt was, now if you put someone on Watt, it opens somebody else up, and you get the actual guy open that you want to have open.
Exactly.
But defensive players scoring touchdowns is always funny. Mike Vrabel of the New England Patriots will agree because he's caught a few touchdowns in his day, and he was a linebacker. So,
right.
The final team I want to speak about in this segment is the Buffalo Bills, who are sixth. They're sixth in the NFL with 153 rushing yards per game. Now, I'm not doing this on bias, Perez. I'm doing this because, I'll be honest, I did not expect the Bills to be undefeated. I'm sure a lot of people did not expect the Bills to be undefeated. They've played great these first 2 weeks, and it's been a lot of fun to watch.
Here's the deal. The Buffalo Bills do this every year. Every year for the last, 6 seasons, they'll roll off a couple of wins. Buffalo fans will lose their minds talking about this is the year that we're going to win, yay! And then they collapse. I don't see this year being any different. I'm not excited. I'm not a Bills fan. I'm glad for you people who are. You got 2 wins under your belt. You cherish that because it's not going to continue.
Well, hey, you never know, man. They're playing the Chargers this weekend. I mean, the Chargers just did beat the Seahawks, but I'll tell you what, that Buffalo Bills defense right now is looking very good. And if E.J. Manuel can continue to manage the game, not make bad mistakes, just take what's given to you, as we saw last week. Because, I mean, the first game against the Bears was a good game for E.J., but last week was better in terms of you could see the decision-making process on the field as it was happening, where if he didn't have anything, he would roll out and, take a couple yards or check down, or he wouldn't try to force a ball if he didn't need to.
He looked a lot better than he did last year, that's for sure.
Oh, he's showing a lot of growth, that's for sure. And right now, with the running game being as well as it is, like I said, 6th in the league at the moment, he can be a game manager and ease himself in because you got to remember, he's only played, I think he's played less than around 15 games in his NFL career at this point. Because obviously he didn't play the full season last year. He got hurt and missed a bunch of games. So he's still learning. He's still a young, raw quarterback that has to learn how to play the game the right way. So if you can ease him in with, make some passes here or there, check down, just be smart with the football, and then you can hand the ball off to C.J. Spiller or Fred Jackson, and they'll break off a few nice runs. I mean, and when you're getting C.J. Spiller running, 102 yards on a kickoff for a touchdown, and you've got Sammy Watkins making defensive backs look like fools, your job will be a lot easier. That's for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I just don't think that this would continue.
Well, hey, you've got your opinions, man. I've got mine. It's okay. That's why we got a podcast.
That's right.
And we will see. We'll be here all football season to talk about it. If the Bills do great, we'll talk. If the Bills don't do great, we'll talk. Life will go on, my friend. I've been a Bills fan for 15 years now. The first game I ever watched the Bills play was the Music City Miracle game. That's the last first Bills game I remember watching.
That was a good game.
I've never seen the Bills be good after, so I'm used to it. So if they do great, awesome. If they do bad, okay, I'm used to it. But moving over now to the story of the month of the year at this point, Adrian Peterson and Greg Hardy. Peterson was moved to the exempt list this week, which, if you did not know, apparently exists. And I want to read you. The explanation of the exempt list, if you have not already made yourself aware. Quote, the exempt list is a special player status available to clubs only in unusual circumstances. The list includes those players who have been declared by the commissioner to temporarily be exempt from counting within the active list limit. Only the commissioner has authority to place a player on the exempt list. Clubs have no such authority, and no exemption, regardless of circumstances, is automatic. The commissioner also has the authority to determine in advance whether a player's time in the exempt list will be finite or will continue until the commissioner deems the exemption should be lifted and the player returned to the active list. So Adrian Peterson is out, they said, until he at least has his trial, which is sometime in 2015. But apparently now, because that happened, because they said they won't make him active until then, there's been talks apparently between his lawyer and the court in Texas that he may agree to some, or they're going to try to create and agree to some sort of plea deal to get this trial taken care of so he can serve his suspension and then come back to the NFL.
Well, do you have anything you want to say about it before
I'm just giving my 2 cents on the what's going on because I want to hear what you have to say. That's why I shut up. Come on, Perez. I know you well enough now. We talked about this during the week. We had a conversation over texting, and I knew that this would be a topic that you're I know you're very passionate. A lot of people are passionate about it, but I really want to hear what you have to say.
I believe that bringing up something that happened back in May, first of all, kind of ridiculous. Now,
well, you've got
people out there. Hold on a second.
I just want to tell you really quick, just for the people. Sorry to interrupt you, but I have heard a lot of it's back in May. It's not a big deal, but the justice system does take time. So this has been going on for a while now. It's just the indictment came down now, so that's why it seems ridiculous that it's taking so long. But that's how things work.
But see, there was actually 2 occurrences here where they tried to press charges. And the first time, the charges were actually dropped. The police felt that had been nothing untoward to happen. They felt it had been disciplined. That he had spanked this child, yes, but that he hadn't felt that they didn't feel like it was something that they had to pursue. The mother wanted to pursue it some more, and so she has. She put the pictures out there, and granted, the pictures look horrible. I'm going to agree with you there. The pictures look bad. But listen, when I was that age, I was disciplined. And the discipline left bruises. My parents did not do it to abuse me. They did it to teach me between right and wrong. I do not feel that Adrian Peterson intentionally tried to abuse his child. I feel that it was discipline and that he's very remorseful about it. The problem is we live in an age where people are out there. I mean, you got the left wing coming at this from who knows where, and people nowadays don't discipline their kids, and if you do, they feel you're in the wrong. But here's the problem. If you look at, and listen, earlier this week, you, sir, were saying it's a different day and age. You can't do what you used to do in this day and age. And I say, poppycock. That's horrible because if you look at kids nowadays, kids do not have any respect for anything.
Correct.
That's because they're no longer disciplined.
Well, and like I told you, I don't necessarily agree with things that have changed, but that's how kids are brought up these days. I mean, parents don't feel it's necessary to punish their children for doing things. I mean, I have to say, I think a lot of it is things that happened back when you were a child. As time goes on, and there was a clip on ESPN which I'm going to play before we go to break. When Chris Carter mentions it, you are spanked as a child, or whatever happens. But as you get older, you realize that that's not the right thing to do. So you find a different way to discipline your kids. Now, most people these days is not that they don't believe it's not right to discipline. There's a lot of people these days that just don't discipline their kids because they don't give a damn. I mean, that's right. A different conversation for a different day. A lot of kids these days don't respect anything or anybody because their parents don't give a damn. And you can tell it by when you meet somebody and you say, okay, now I know why your kids are such a steaming pile of crap because, well, look where they get it from.
Exactly. And here's the thing. I was raised in a Christian environment. And whether or not you believe what the Bible says or not. That doesn't matter to me. You can believe it, you cannot believe it, whatever. If you look at the Bible, and if you break down the basic tenets of the Bible, it has a very good guide to how you should live your life. You know, I mean, the Ten Commandments are thou shalt not steal. Yeah, okay, that makes sense, you know. So you can say God doesn't exist, you can say God exists, whatever. But if you break the Bible down, it gives you a good guide to live your life by. And if you live your life by those tenements, you should have a pretty decent life because you're not out there making a fool of yourself. The Bible says, spare the rod, spoil the child. And if you look at kids nowadays, you see parents sparing the rod and children that are spoiled and not behaving like they should. So, did Adrian Peterson go overboard? That's not for me to decide. Yes, the pictures look horrible. I'm sure my buttocks and the top of my legs looked pretty bad when I was a kid because I was a bad kid. I got spanked to get them out. But my parents didn't do it out of hatred. They did it out of love. And as a 40-year-old man now, I see why they did it. I understand completely why they did it. Because I look around at parents nowadays not doing it, and I think to myself, you should really lay hands on your child to teach them a lesson.
And like I said to you before, it's a different age, and you may not believe when I say that, but
it's a completely different age. I believe you. It's a different age. It doesn't mean methods should be different.
Well, that's what I mean by it's a different age, is that people, as time goes on, people, the parents now are not like the parents back in the day. And now what happened back in the day with disciplining, it may be wrong, it may not be wrong. It's just based on what you believe and what your personal choices are. That being said, a lot of adults these days just don't feel right. And that's, it is what it is. I mean, I personally don't think it's necessary, but I mean, that's again, it's my personal belief.
I agree.
And that's all this thing's all about is some people believe it's okay. Some people believe, hey, he did what was right. It went a little overboard. He should pay the consequences for going a little crazy on the child. But there's other people who say it's downright disgusting what he did. I mean, and
I know people who are saying it's downright disgusting, and those type of people weren't disciplined as a child, and it should have been.
Well, like I said, it's at this point, it's all just a matter of opinion and what you believe in. It's become a very loaded topic, that's for sure.
It has.
And I'm trying not to step on a landmine here because I have my personal beliefs, and like I said, I don't think that anything he did was right. I understand why one would think that, but then again, I just personally don't think it was right. And that's just how I feel, and that's how I will feel, because if I had a child that I sent to my ex-wife's house or whatever, and the kid came home looking like that, I would be furious. But then again, that's just a scenario. That's not real life. It's just me saying what I believe. So I've never been in the situation. I don't know. I'm not a parent. I have a niece and nephew, but I'm not a parent. So it's kind of hard for me to sit here and say, yeah, this is what I would do or this is what I did, because it's difficult. It's difficult to say.
But as an uncle, you got to remember, I know your family. And as an uncle, your kid, your nieces and nephews are very young.
Yes.
So you wouldn't discipline them at this point in the same way you would discipline someone who's a little older.
Well,
honest.
That's like what Reggie Bush said a couple of days ago. He said his daughter's 1 year old, and he said if she broke the rules, he would discipline her like Adrian Peterson disciplined his child. I mean, shortly after
that's going a little bit far. She's one. You don't do that with a 1-year-old.
Well, he took back his statement and said I was misquoted, but I mean, it's pretty hard to misquote that,
And let's be honest, Desiree is incredibly cute. It'd be hard to discipline her anyway.
She's a monster. She does what she wants.
yes, we'll maybe see later on, but I have to discipline that child.
Oh, I'll tell you what. There will be a time where Eric will put his foot down, and it will not involve spanking or anything. But there will be a time where somebody gets suplexed through a table or something. I don't know.
Right.
It's a wrestling household. She would probably suplex him through the table. Let's be honest.
That's a true story.
Like, no, Dad, I want to go to my friend's house. I'm going to DDT you on the kitchen table and leave.
That'd be funny.
Getting back on topic, though, I do want to mention this one. Greg Hardy, he's the defensive end for the Carolina Panthers. He was deactivated last weekend as the Panthers determined what they wanted to do because they didn't want to fumble the situation like the Vikings did, where the Vikings activated deactivated indefinitely. But the interesting thing about it is that he was convicted of domestic assault or something along those lines. A misdemeanor, a domestic, we'll just say a domestic misdemeanor because I don't remember exactly what it was. I don't want to misquote or miscredit, I should say. But he was still on the field and he was still going to play, but he was appealing the conviction because obviously if he's convicted of something, he will be suspended. So now the Carolina Panthers reversed course and suspended him. Well, they didn't suspend him. He volunteered to take a leave of absence, a paid leave of absence, same as Adrian Peterson. He's not in the exempt list, but he's not going to be at the facilities. He's going to get paid to stay home. At this point in time, I believe the Peterson and the Hardy situation, it's the right thing to do, but we can't give either team credit because it's way too late.
Right. Well, it is, but you have to look at the pressure that these teams were getting from not only outside interest groups, but I told you earlier this week that it was all about money in some of these cases. And while what Hardy did, that's an interesting case because they wanted to indict him, but he said they offered him a plea deal, and he said, no, I want this to go to a jury case. So he actually wants to be found guilty or innocent in the eyes of his peers, which is interesting because he truly believes that whatever happened didn't actually happen. Because if you would actually, I would imagine that if I was in that situation and they had concrete evidence against me, I'd be like, all right, I'll take the plea deal. You got me. But this dude really feels like he didn't do anything wrong, which I find interesting because my understanding is that there was actually bruises on the woman that he hit.
That's correct.
So I don't know what this guy is thinking. Because, frankly, you go to a jury case, it could be a lot worse than what the plea deal was.
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, there's been pressure from NFL sponsors. Anheuser-Busch shot a blank at the league.
$1.9 billion.
Yep, they shot a blank and threatened the league, and a few other sponsors have actually left. But you look at it, and it's just at some point in time something has to happen, and it appears now the time is it's happening. I mean, Goodell wasn't going to do anything until there was pressure. Now there's, immense amount of pressure. Now, I was saying to somebody that we'll find out what the NFL's made of when the next arrest happens, and it just so happens a couple days after, Jonathan Dwyer, the running back for the Arizona Cardinals, was arrested following an incident that happened in July where he headbutted his wife and threw a shoe at his 1-year-old child. Apparently, he was trying to sleep with her, and she was denying his sexual advances, so he headbutted her and shattered her nose. So,
which, will definitely get a girl to change her mind, by the way.
Exactly, because that's so romantic. But
right. I know a lot of girls who love being headbutted.
Save that conversation for a different time. He was arrested, and then about an hour later, the Cardinals announced that he's been deactivated indefinitely. So that is good. It's a good step in the right direction. But again, like I said, with the Vikings, last thing before I wrap up this segment, the Vikings, Panthers, you did good, but you don't get a gold star because it took you way too damn long to do it. And let's be honest, you tried to do the wrong thing in terms of because your team is a business, because you want to win football games, because we all know why Adrian Peterson was activated on Monday. That's because the Vikings got their asses handed to them by the Patriots 30-7. And
big time.
At this point in time, Adrian Peterson being off the field and losing without Adrian Peterson makes more sense than keeping him on the field and winning with him, because if he stays in the team, they will lose. They'll lose sponsors. I mean, the governor of Minnesota called out and said Peterson shouldn't play, and that's important because the state of Minnesota and their taxpayers are giving the Vikings $498 million to build to help build their brand new football stadium. So that's a ton of pressure. But like I said, you did the right thing, Minnesota. You did the right thing, Carolina. But you took too long. Learn from your mistakes and do it better next time if it ever happens again, because you look stupid. That's for damn sure.
Well, we have a difference of opinion when it comes to the Vikings. But here's what's going on now. You now see groups calling out the NFL for things like, for instance, Brandon Marshall. 6 years ago, he had an issue off the field. And now interest groups are calling for Brandon Marshall to be suspended for the incident 6 years ago. Forget about the fact that Brandon Marshall not only has turned his life around, but has started groups that help these players work through their problems. He's mentored kids. He's mentored adults. He has made a complete 180. So forget about the fact that he is done right by society. He had an incident 6 years ago. Let's suspend him. And that's the issue that's going on right now.
And not just that.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I keep interrupting you. I'm trying to time it perfectly, but I just keep. I'm very poor at this today, apparently. He released a statement yesterday at a press conference that was just a normal press conference, which was the statement from the doctor saying that the girl who was trying to come after him was the one who was. I mean, we all know Brandon Marshall has trouble because he's gotten in numerous fights with his wife. He's been arrested a couple times. I think she stabbed him at one point in time, if I'm not mistaken, when he was with the Dolphins. There was an issue, a domestic issue.
Which, by the way, if my wife stabs me, I'm probably going to leave.
Yeah, that would be a good idea.
Out there.
There was a domestic issue. Apparently, the woman was the aggressor, but everything. Brandon was cleared in the case. They both did the counseling together. Everything was taken care of and done with. But she decides to come out now because the spotlight is hot in the NFL, and she's trying to get her 15 minutes of fame again. That one seems to be like that. But I mean, the Peterson case, the Greg Hardy case, those are serious cases. This one seems like someone is just trying to get their name back in the paper.
Right. No, I agree. But because she's doing that, you now have interest groups who are going after him.
Yeah, I don't think that'll hold water. After a while, they'll find out they're just digging for nothing, and that's what'll happen. I mean, if you can keep attacking the NFL, but they will find ways to fend off these attacks. We all know that, because while the NFL may be a terrible organization, and we've seen that recently, they certainly find ways to heal up very quickly from the self-inflicted wounds.
Right. I agree.
Now, before I send this into commercial break, I do want to mention again, I'm going to play this piece from Chris Carter and ESPN. I personally, I don't know about you, Perez, I feel very strongly about it. I agree with Chris Carter wholeheartedly. And I want to hear what you guys have to think about it. Listen to it. Let us know. You can hit us up on Twitter. I'm at WolfSHC. Perez is at MRLG Perez. Facebook.com/BLTD Podcast. Right after this commercial break, we will be back to talk about something we've never talked about in the history of the Better Live Than Dead podcast. Stay tuned. We're going to have some fun with it.
And this goes across all racial lines, ethnicities, religious backgrounds. People believe in disciplining their children. People with any type of Christian background, they really believe in disciplining their children. My mom did the best job she could do, raising 7 kids by herself. But there are thousands of things that I have learned since then that my mom was wrong.
Yes. Thank you.
It's the 21st century. My mom was wrong. She did the best she could, but she was wrong about some of that stuff she taught me. And I promise my kids I won't teach that mess to them. You can't be the kid to make them do what they want to do.
That's correct. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thousands of things we have learned since then. And now we're to the point, the only thing I'm proud about is the team that I played for. They did the right thing.
Yes.
Take them off the field. I don't care what. We're in a climate right now, I don't care what it is. Take them off the dang on field. Because you know what? As a man, that's the only thing we really respect. We don't respect no women. We don't respect no kids. The only thing Roger and them do, take them off the field. Because they respect that.
This free and independent sportscast is made possible when you shop the Gear Network store through Amazon. Visit GearNetwork.com and click on the Amazon banner to shop through Amazon's thousands of products at great prices delivered right to your front door. Again, that's GearNetwork.com and click the Amazon banner at the top.
A successful product does not become a successful product on its own. Look at the Gear Radio Network, for example. We're a prime example. We had a lot of help getting here, and we can help you get where you want to go to. Advertising rates are very low to start off here on the Gear Radio Network. Visit us at GearNetwork.com. Click on the contact link to send us an email, and we can work out the details. Again, advertise your product across all of the forums at a low, low rate here on the Gear Radio Network.
Do you enjoy listening to Better Live Than Dead, but you're not always by your laptop to hear it on GearNetwork.com? Not to worry, we've got you covered. Better Live Than Dead and all other Gear Network podcasts can now be heard on iHeartRadio, iTunes, in the Zune Marketplace, on SoundCloud, Spreaker, Stitcher Radio, and on TuneIn Radio. So make sure you get one of the aforementioned apps to stay up to date with the latest Gear Network podcasts. And we are back in the Better Live Than Dead podcast. Myself, Ryan Wolf, Mr. Perez on the phone this afternoon.
Hello.
Perez,
Welcome
before the break, Perez, I teased that we would be talking about something for the first time ever in the history of the Better Live Than Dead podcast. I know it was only 6 episodes, but every time we do this, we got to make a big deal about it. Major League Baseball. How have you and I 5 episodes, because obviously this is the 6th episode, so 5 episodes, almost 5 hours of content, and we never once mentioned baseball. You and I are big baseball fans, my friend. I mean, both our teams are doing poorly. You the Yankees, me the Red Sox. But how did we miss this?
There's been so much going on with other sports that we haven't had time really to talk about baseball.
Well, let's be honest, too. I mean, for the listener's sake, we do apologize because I know I would be more interested in baseball, and I damn well know you would be, too, if the Red Sox and Yankees were doing better.
That's a true story, and there's actually some really good races going on right now.
Oh, absolutely. Right now, actually, just to highlight real quick, if you have been kind of under a rock with baseball like we all have on the Better Live Than Dead podcast, the Baltimore Orioles clinched the American League East, the first title since 1997. The Washington Nationals clinched the National League East, the second one in 3 years. They've got a great team down there in Washington. And the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim have clinched the American League West. They have the best record in baseball. And besides the Pittsburgh Pirates, who we're going to talk about in a second, they are the hottest team in baseball. They don't appear to be able to be stopped at this point.
I like the Pittsburgh Pirates team.
And looking at the teams that are close to clinching, as you mentioned, great races in this postseason, getting close to the postseason. Kansas City, the Kansas City Royals, I should say, and the Detroit Tigers are down to the wire. I mean, it's a half-game lead right now by Detroit.
Detroit leads them by half a game. They're going into a 3-game series this weekend.
It's
starting tonight. That can make all the difference in the world.
It's going to make the difference in the world. You got to imagine, because I mean, if you win 2 or 3. You've got a lead. No matter what you win 2 or 3, you got a lead. The great thing about Kansas City was last year when they traded Will Myers to the Royals for James Shields, because they felt that they could be a team that contends for the playoffs. It didn't work out so well last year because Will Myers, great player for the Rays, and the Royals didn't make the playoffs. Now this year, on the final year of his contract, James Shields has been James Shields, as they call him, Big Game James, if you will, which I don't get it, but we'll go with it. He's been phenomenal this year. But now Will Myers has struggled. The sophomore slump, if you will. He's had a few injuries. And Kansas City's about to make the playoffs, so I guess that was a trade made with the right thing in mind, just a year too early. Now, I would love to see Kansas City in the playoffs because if there's anything I love about Major League Baseball playoffs, it's young teams that don't know any better, if you will. That just play and win because what else are they supposed to do? They don't know.
I agree with you.
Looking in the National League Central, the St. Louis Cardinals are fighting off the Red Hot Pirates, who I believe are 11-2 in their last 13 games. They've got a 2.5-game lead on them, but like I said, the Pirates are red hot at this point in time. And same goes for the Dodgers in the West. They are fending off the Giants. They've got a 2.5-game lead with a handful of games to go. But the one thing I wanted to look at today before we exited the podcast was the postseason picture. If the season ended today in the American League, the Kansas City Royals would be taking on the Oakland Athletics in the wild card game, which the play-in game, which would be interesting because the Athletics were very good before the All-Star break, made a few trades at the deadline to get better, and they fell to earth, completely fell to earth. Now, was it the trade of Yoenis Cespedes? I don't necessarily think that was the one thing. A lot of it has to do with just the ball rolling your way, and their batting average for batted balls in play has dropped drastically. They've just been very unlucky, if you can believe it. And I believe the Angels have gained like 15 games in the past month and a half or so on the Athletics. That's how bad the Athletics have been. So that game would be fun to watch, and that'll either be Kansas City and Oakland, or Kansas City or Detroit and Oakland, or maybe even the Seattle Mariners, who are making a late run at the thing. They are very, 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 very close to making it into the wild card game. And the Oakland Athletics, after leading the West in a convincing fashion just a few months ago, may not even make the playoffs.
Which would be nutty.
I think a few people would lose their job if that was the case.
I absolutely agree.
At the moment, the winner of the wild card game would play the Angels in the ALDS, and then at the moment, the Orioles and Tigers would play in the ALDS. Going over the National League side of things, a play-in game that would be fun for a lot of people. The San Francisco Giants right now would play the Pittsburgh Pirates. That would be a
great game. That would be a lot of fun. The Giants have been there the last couple of years. They've won a couple of World Series. I would like, if that comes down to that, I'd like to see the Pirates get into the playoffs.
I would love to see the Pirates get in the playoffs, but I don't honestly know if they could get past the Giants. The Giants they're good, very good. They've got a lot of talent in their lineup, a lot of good pitching. A few guys that have been injured lately. I know Angel Pagan is – Angel Pagan. I don't know why I said Angel. Angel Pagan has a problem with his back. But they've been there before.
Angel is Spanish.
Yeah,
you say it the Spanish way, it's Angel, so you're good.
I was trying to remember because usually when I think of players' names, I always remember the pronunciation. But today, my brain is not working very well. So the winner of the Giants Pirates game would go on to play the Nationals, who, as we mentioned before, have a phenomenal young team. Or phenomenal young team, not a phenomenally young team. I mean, they are young, but they are also good and young.
I understand what you mean.
They've got great lineup, great power pitching, great bullpen with the return of old closer Drew Storen, who was a great closer, lost it, forgot how to do it, couldn't figure it out, whatever happened, went to the minors, regained it, came back, and he's now lights out. So that's huge for them, especially with Drew Storen and Rafael Soriano at the back end of that bullpen. It's going to be tough to beat them in October.
I agree.
At the other game, at NLDS right now, it's the Cardinals and the Dodgers, which we saw last year. I believe it was the NLCS last year was the Dodgers and the Cardinals, so that'll be fun to watch. Both teams are a powerhouse. Cardinals, it's like a broken record. They're a great baseball team every year. It's a great organization. They've got great farm system. They make the right decisions. They sign the right players. Great pitching, great hitting, great managing too. I mean, Mike Matheny he stepped into a great situation there, but he is as good of a manager as you'll get.
Yeah, no, he's an excellent manager. I personally would like to see the Dodgers make some noise.
Well, you think they almost have to? You think they almost have to at this point with with the amount of money they have in that team, and last year Don Mattingly, when they lost, it didn't really sit too well with him or ownership, so it may come down to they have to make some noise, or you might see some big changes in Los Angeles coming this offseason.
Well, I agree with you there.
So I guess now that we've got baseball on, we've got to make some predictions. We have to. Now we've got the bulk of the teams here. There may be one or two that switch, but I want to know who you have in the ALCS and the NLCS.
Oh, man.
And I know I'm putting you on the spot. It's my favorite thing to do.
I'm going to go. Who do you got?
I think in the ALCS, I'm looking at the Angels because they've had a lot of injuries on their pitching staff. But I'll tell you what, they've overcome everything, and they're just a great team this year. I don't know where it came from, but they finally got their act together, got things in line, and they're doing great. So I think it'll be the Angels, and I want to say Detroit because they've been there before. They know how to win in October. But part of me thinks that the Baltimore Orioles are ready to make the next step to at least make the ALCS. But I'm going to go with Angels and Tigers in the ALCS.
That, you know what? In the ALCS, me and you feel pretty much the same. I can see the Tigers getting there. They have a great power squad. But I also feel that the Orioles, they may be ready to take that next step. But I think the Angels are going to be there.
I've actually got the Angels going to the World Series. I think if they can continue to hit the ball the way they are and play good baseball, there's not much you can show me that will get me to believe that they can be stopped.
Yes.
On the National League side,
I can see that.
You go.
I can see that. I can see the Angels making it.
See, I've cut you off enough today. I mean, you can cut me off a few times too if you'd like.
That's all good, man.
Return the favor, why don't you? On the National League side of things, I've honestly think it's going to be the Nationals and the Cardinals. The Cardinals,
really?
Yes. I've got a feeling. I mean, if the Dodgers move over to the other side, well, I don't think the Dodgers will move over to the other side because the Nationals are the best team in the NL right now. So if the Nationals get bumped, which I don't even know if that'll happen because the team to bump them would be Los Angeles at this point. If things change and the Dodgers end up with the best record in the National League that the Nationals have right now, I would probably say Dodgers and Cardinals in the NLCS. But if the Nationals remain the best team in the NL, I would have to say it'll probably be, I want to say Nationals and Cardinals just because the Cardinals, again, they know how to win in October. They've got the pitching staff. They've got the pitching staff. They've got the bullpen. They've got the hitting. They've got the timely hitting. Like I said, they've got the great managing. I think the Cardinals are going to be the team to beat in the National League this year. But I'm going to put my neck out there and just on a whim. I think the World Series this year will be the Nationals against the Angels.
That'll be a good World Series.
Just because. I don't know why. I was thinking about it a couple days ago, and I know the Cardinals have everything, and they've won World Series. They lost to the Red Sox last year. They've won a couple recently.
I think it's going to come down to you got the Nationals, the Cards. I got the Dodgers, the Cards.
Do you think the Dodgers have done enough, though, to beat the Cardinals?
No.
Fair enough. I mean,
no,
the Dodgers.
I think they've done enough to beat the Nationals.
Well, you got to remember right now that if it plays out the way it does, the Nationals get the team who wins the wild card, and the Dodgers play the Cardinals in the DS. So a potential World Series favorite could be eliminated in the first round just because that's how the things play out. We'll find out.
True.
But I know this has been kind of a small baseball segment. Do apologize. We will talk a lot more about baseball as the playoffs get closer. But right now, I've got the Angels and the Nationals. Perez, we need a. You said Angels and Cardinals?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to get you on the record. Just want to have you there so we can make fun of each other in a couple weeks when we are painfully wrong. Because if there's anything I've noticed about the Better Live Than Dead podcast, is that you and I are terrible at predictions.
Yes.
But that has been our.
Although I picked the I think the Falcons did win last night. That played out pretty well.
I was going to mention that, but that is like that's like betting you'll get paid on payday.
Right.
So I mean that was about as easy to pick as I've ever made in my life. But that has been our brief baseball segment, and I do apologize for being so brief, but we will talk more baseball soon. Baseball's coming up. We've got hockey here shortly. The Buffalo Sabres are starting their training camp today on Thursday or Friday. It's Friday. Wow, it's Friday.
It is Friday. See, you're even bad at picking the days of the week.
I probably should not have done a podcast today if my brain cells were not willing to participate in this process. But that being said, I'm going to throw it to commercial break right now. When we come back, we will wrap things up for this week. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. Again, my brain cells are they vacated my brain this afternoon. So we will be right back after these commercial breaks.
Hey, gear guys and gals, do you hear that song in the background? Yes, that, my friends, is You Are Undeniable by Mos Def featuring Marvin Gaye, and I purchased that from my iPhone using Gear Network on iTunes. That's right. iTunes is not only a destination for our podcast, but now you can go there for all your app, music, podcast, and video needs. Anything you want from the App Store, you can get via the Gear Network iTunes connection. Here's what you do. Go to GearNetwork.com and click on Support the Shows and click on the iTunes link. We'll take you to our page, and you'll be able to access iTunes from there and make your purchases as you normally would. The difference is Apple throws us a little something to help with the productions when you purchase through the Gear Store, and this will help keep the podcast free and independent. Again, that's GearNetwork.com, and don't forget the Amazon page as well to shop for the iPod or iPhone to play these apps on. One more time, that's GearNetwork.com. Check out all our other shows on the Gear Network as well while you are there.
Are you a fantasy sports player? If yes, FanDuel is for you. A one-week fantasy sports season where you draft new teams each week with a chance to instantly earn money. Also, FanDuel will match your first deposit up to $200. Sign up through Gear Network at GearNetwork.com/FanDuel and help keep the Gear Network podcast free. Again, that's GearNetwork.com/FANDUEL. And now it is time to wrap up the sixth installment of the Better Live Than Dead podcast. First off, I want to say, Perez, thank you for joining me, as usual.
Thank you.
I know we had kind of an extended... You're more than welcome. I know we've had an extended talk this morning. It's going to be a very long podcast this week, but you know what? That's what we do sometimes.
It is. And you know what? It's entertaining, so... If anything, people won't be bored when they listen to us.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're very passionate about what we do, and it's evident in the podcast, and people are enjoying that from what I've been told. So,
right, yeah, no, that's what I've been hearing too, so that's a good thing.
We're doing something right, man. As I said, thank you, Perez. I want to thank Tony at Fortune. I want to thank Tony at Fortune Studios for making the podcast sound great, as well as some of the new commercials. As well as some of the new commercials we have. I keep burping over here. I don't know what my problem is. I'm just gonna quit here shortly.
You're not doing it on air.
Yeah, I'm not that disgusting. I mean, I could, but I won't do that. Tony at Fortune Studios making the podcast sound great, making the commercials sound even better. I want to thank John at the Gear Network always for letting this podcast happen.
Thank you
for making the new affiliations happen, for helping. I mean, I know it is his baby. He's making the thing go worldwide. We're doing just as much, man. But a lot of fun. Also, I want to say thank you to each and every one of you always for tuning in, for downloading, for listening, for clicking on the link, for liking, for favoriting, for whatever you do out there in internet radio land. Thank you so much for making this podcast happen.
Thank you, listeners. For
Mr. Perez,
Mr. Wolf,
I am Ryan Wolf. You are not.
I am Mr. Perez.
He's Mr. Perez, and there's no one on this world who is Mr. Perez because that man is one of a kind.
That's a true story. That's a true story.
We will try and do better next week, my friends. Thank you again for joining us. Have a great week. Enjoy the sports, and we will be back same time, same place with more sports talk for you.
Adios.